All right, while you're doing that, let's pull up the Liz Plank tweet.
Okay, it's ready.
Liz Plant.
Liz Plant. Liz CIA.
Okay.
All right, Liz Plank is I don't know. Does she write it? Where does she write? I don't know where she writes. Whatever.
I can't.
Yeah.
She's it doesn't matter. She's a sort of pop info person. Writes about politics, I think. I can't believe now the whole context of this show, among a couple of core tenets, is the idea of contextualizing and historicizing everything. I can't believe this needs to be said, but the job of the media is to report and hold accountable and she puts in all bold letters, current administration. If Obama's name is in your mouth, you're doing it wrong. Honestly, David, what did you reply? What did you tweet?
Oh, this is true.
What is this?
This is like funny only to me. This is actually from the McMillions show. I've been watching it too, man.
Oh, really?
And I just took a picture of this guy's face because it cracks me.
I mean, honestly, this is the resistance. I mean, this is what has demonstrated why the mindset of the prime political formation against Trump has been morally, intellectually, strategically disastrous, and also totally inefficient at putting the groundwork of beating him, which needs to happen. I'm not indulging bullshit about this. Donald Trump needs to be beat. The idea that one is an innate exercise, that journalism is just it's like a second by second chronicling of what's happening now, is an assault on any sense of institutionally understanding anything. So I'll just kind of leave it at that very macro place. That's like a disastrous, terrifying sentiment even of itself. And then if you want to have the wherewithal of understanding the most dangerous areas with Donald Trump, his extensions on the Patriot Act, the infrastructure at the border, which has allowed this vicious, grotesque, racist policy designed by Stephen Miller. This is all built on an infrastructure that goes back to the creation of Homeland Security, that goes through political calculations of the Obama era. This is not about, I mean, I understand she's probably responding to people who just do kind of whataboutism on social media, but that isn't journalism either. I mean, the fact that she can't conceive of, that she looks out and it's like, oh, well, I do dumb internet hot takes. And again, I don't know all of her work.
She's a senior producer and political correspondent at Vox.
Yeah. No, it's crap.
Let me speak in her I'll feed to you guys, but let me just finish by speaking her parlance. Yikes. David, go ahead.
Look, we started this post game talking about Bill Clinton. How dare you put Bill Clinton's name in Donald Trump?
We were doing it wrong. I was trying to understand the current crisis with China by going back to the formation of modern Chinese trade policy. But obviously, I'm doing it wrong.
It's obnoxious. It's ahistorical. It's apolitical. What it is fundamentally, it really pisses me off because for a bunch of these kind of characters, not to sound like too much of a Republican conservative, but in the liberal elite media living in New York City, right?
Yes.
It's just they act like these people are all their friends. And like any kind of political criticism is like, you're coming at my friend. Well, I have to stand up and defend him regardless of what you're saying. Like, get my friend's name out of your mouth. That guy was the most powerful man in the world for 8 years.
For 8 years. But also, guys, like, what if you can't talk about anything, if you can't contextualize policy, if you can't come up with an actual strategy to beat Trump and the conditions that led to Trump, what are you left with? Freaking out about his Twitter account.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, exactly. And again, all of the stuff, including things that maybe people should take more seriously. Like, obviously, impeachment, whatever. Okay, I did my best. Obviously, it wasn't, whatever. But no, he shouldn't have made that call. That absolutely was a problematic call. 100%. Objectively a problem. And part of the reason that didn't register among many is that it's esoteric and it's not immediately relevant to most people. But it's also because people are bombarded by second outrage and bullshit about this guy, to the point where you lose the actual plot. And you say, this fucking sociopath conducted a pandemic into our country because he's a oblivious narcissist. It's just incredible, because this attitude globally is a disaster, but it defeats its own purposes every step of the way.
Yeah, this reminds me of, and David, at 6 on the post game on the sound sheet, my favorite Cy Hirsch clip. He's talking about how basically dumb most journalists are and how they don't read.
He's talking about Liz Plank.
I mean, yes, you can see that this is just like a class of journalists we have that is like the sort of like liberal meritocratic dunderhead that's never really been challenged. I mean, look, I'm just guessing. Yeah, and like has no conception of the world that she's actually commenting on, or he's actually commenting on. Be more generic.
We've treated very favorably by the press. I really have been. I have no complaint, given Kissinger's status. But they really don't. I was press secretary for G. McCarthy when he ran against Lyndon Johnson. One of McCarthy's lines that always struck me as very apt, funny, but also more apt than people realize. He said, "The trouble with you reporters is you write but you don't read." And we do have that. I mean, there's not enough, it seems to me, thoughtful stuff that goes on in the media, which makes it possible for a guy like me to make money. Why I shouldn't be. I've been generally.
I mean, honestly, it's just. Yeah. I really want to be more mindful about, piling on people and taking people's worst moments. So, whatever. The truth is, I truly don't know anything about her. My guess would be I wouldn't find most of her work. The @ handle and that tweet. This is probably not somebody whose work and Vox. I'm very unlikely to go research her more, but maybe she's written some great articles. Maybe she's had some great insights about Trump or whatever. But that actual sentiment and the fact that that has not been deleted is actually like demented. I mean, we are in an age of full demented. Mm-hmm. The president is a fucking psychopath. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are the epitome of utter implosion, zero leadership capacity. Joe Biden appears to be dying. The Republican Party is led by a predator psychotic media class. And then we've got millennial resistance types who they've got like a 2-term. They have a 3-term memory, because now they think George W. Bush was a nice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Who handed off to Barack Obama, who was ushering us into utopia, and Donald Trump is a mean man. I mean, it's actually terrifying.
And it's like you have to take this stuff seriously. It's like, look, I understand some liberals, like their gut reaction when they hear people talk about Obama is to freak out a little bit, because you had so much disingenuous stuff coming from the right wing for years, right? Like, okay, like I'll just get
racist stuff and everything else.
Yeah, of course. But look, I think, we talked about this maybe a month or two ago, but we were talking about surveillance capitalism or whatever, and how like the Donald Trump Cambridge Analytica, was a scandal. But when Barack Obama was using mass data, right, it was a brilliant campaign strategy, right? And like, you got to understand, like, these things develop from people in power. And obviously, like, Donald Trump is the grotesque, like the cartoonish version of it. But if you're going to have this kind of ahistorical idea that like America was driving down this great road and then, this monster just appeared out of nowhere, one, you're wrong. And two, you are protecting people who need to be criticized. And we need to be having conversations about how Donald Trump came into power and why he has the tools that he has today to wage against us.
Well, that was the whole, I remember in 2012, people saying like, okay, even if you trust President Obama to have a mass aggressive surveillance program and drop drones across the planet without even a metric of properly measuring civilian casualties, just stipulate that that's all fine because he reads Toni Morrison or whatever the fuck the liberals were thinking. What about what happens when, and it was always like fill in the blank. What if I don't even remember, Marco Rubio becomes president or whatever. Let alone this fucking guy who like actually is. I mean, to the extent, and we are way too focused on people's personalities and personal lives or whatever. They really mostly don't matter. But like, he is actually like an unusual psychopath.
Yeah.
Right? And it just, I don't know, whatever. I mean, I don't know, that tweet just, I try to ignore stuff like that now. Again, in general, I don't want to build a lot of content around some journalist or some pundit said something that was fucking stupid. I think it's redundant. I think it doesn't do much for us. But boy, is that the distillation. That is like the platonic ideal of everything wrong right there.
You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.